Historians often refer to the medieval period in Western history as the Dark Ages. The term Dark Ages is often used to refer to the Middle Ages in Western Europe, from the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century to the Renaissance in the 14th century.
This period is often characterized as a time of decline and barbarism, in contrast to the classical period that preceded it. To put it simply and plainly, there was nothing positive happening in the medieval period. It was dark, and there was no historical progress.
As a matter of fact, if you look through the medieval period of European history, there is nothing special about it other than Christianity. In the Middle Ages, Christianity dominated society, and the old Christianity that is referred to was Catholicism. Christianity was associated with the beginning of the medieval period and had a tremendous influence. Christianity was introduced to the Roman Empire in the 1st century AD, and it quickly spread throughout the empire. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century, Christianity became the dominant religion in Western Europe. The first country in the medieval period was the Frankish kingdom in Western Europe. The Frankish kingdom was founded by the Germanic peoples who had destroyed Rome, living on the east side of the Rhine River, and then moving around the region of present-day Paris, France. The people of France were in fact all ignorant and illiterate, not knowing how to make laws or collect taxes. So, although the country was established, it was not possible to have a basic administration to run the country. That was the reason that the ancient Romans called them barbarians in a disrespectful way. At that time, the church was well organized and knowledgeable, so the Franks asked the church for help. Moreover, it had a strong bureaucracy. This made it an attractive partner for the Franks, who were looking for help in governing their newly conquered territories.
However, when the Frankish dynasty asked the church for help, they wanted to convert to Christianity and asked for help in running the country. The church liked it very much. So the condition the church asked for was that taxes would not be imposed on the priests, and that the priests would not be drafted if war broke out.
And the priests and government reached an agreement to only do religious things as God's representatives, so priests received real benefits from the government. Then, the most important matter was that only the church had the authority to interpret the Bible, and other people or organizations were not allowed to interpret the Bible.
But the Pope, the head of the church, could interpret the Bible. And only the church had the right to publish the Bible. As only the church interpreted and published the Bible, the Christian spirit began to dominate the world of mind and spirit in the Frankish kingdom.
So in the Middle Ages, Christianity and the Christian spirit engulfed all European countries. The church had taken a fully authoritative extraterritorial position. However, when they encountered the new millennium, ominous incidents occurred several times, so the power of the Pope's authority was suddenly weakened.
One of the first historical events was the Crusades, which was advocated by a man named Aruba to strengthen the popedom. Aruba advocated the recapture of Jerusalem as the Holy Land, where high-ranking clergy gathered. Jerusalem had been in the hands of pagans and Muslims since the 7th century, so we had a duty to bring it under our control. He emphasized that it was not his story, it was what God wanted, and it was also the command of Jesus Christ. It was a war that was suddenly organized and entered into without adequate preparation in advance, so it became a rather chaotic situation. Thousands of soldiers lost their way on the way to Jerusalem and often came back home. There were too many side effects, such as looting farmers in the countryside on the way, because they hadn't prepared enough military food and supplies before participating in the war. There were records that from 1096 to 1272, they waged crusades 8 or 9 times for nearly 200 years. Among the many wars, the war that recaptured Jerusalem happened just once, during the First Crusade, and the other wars were all failures. Through the many wars, the casualties were too high and the economy was devastated. And the most fatal aftermath was the tragedy of history, as Christians and Muslims killed so many of each other's people that they became lifelong mortal enemies. From then on, disappointment among people spread that God's army had not won, and loss of self-esteem emerged among people, so the authority of the Pope and the authority of the Church were greatly undermined. The second most important event in the Middle Ages was that in 1241, Mongols attacked Europe. Mongolia had already occupied the Principality of Kiev, the Principality of Novgorod, and the Russian Russo countries. However, in 1240, they invaded Legnica, Hungary, and Poland, and just 2 days later, they entered Mohi, Hungary, and completely defeated the European army. The Polish and German Knights allied forces, followed by Hungarian army, totally wiped out the entire army of 40,000 soldiers in a short period of time. The Mongol invasion had a devastating effect on the Europeans that remind them of the fear of the Huns, who had caused the great migration of Germanic peoples in the past. The meaning of the collapse of Hungary and Poland was that the Mongols invaded Austria, and if they approached north to the east, the new Roman Empire, and if they went down to the south, they would attack the Roman Empire. So the whole of Europe was a candlelight in the wind, but suddenly the Mongol army disappeared. They disappeared because at the time, Ogotai, the son of Genghis Khan, the second emperor of Mongolia, died suddenly. Faced with an unforeseen situation, the Mongol army made the decision to withdraw to Mongolia. They tried to attend the Kurultai ceremony, which was the power succession tribal chiefs meeting in Mongolia. So even when Europe was revived from the terrible crisis, candlelight in the wind situation, after fighting with the Mongol army, they were totally crushed because they had trusted that they were the army of God, but they realized that was an absolute delusion. The final, decisive and fatal event was the spread of the Black Death in 1347. The Black Death, in other words, the bubonic plague, came through Italy and spread to the Scandinavian peninsula at the far end of Europe and across the Strait of Dover to England, killing 50 million people in just 3 years. Huge numbers of people died from the plague. Since 1/3 of the total European population had died, it meant that 1 or 2 people in each household had died. This plague not only killed a lot of people, but it also spread very quickly. In the past, normally, infectious diseases did not spread widely, killing only the people in or near the place, the area where the diseases originated. However, at that time, the Black Death completely changed the old concept of the epidemic. With the appearance of the Black Death, Europe completely changed its way of life, thinking, and culture in European society. The first major event was the collapse of the manor system. The manor supported the feudal system of Europe, and the feudal lord usually lived in the middle of a large farm. The feudal lord divided the farmland and handed it over to the serfs, and the serfs cultivated and produced the products and paid taxes. This was the basic concept of the medieval manor economy system. However, the manor system collapsed because a lot of farmers died from the plague and could not cultivate on farms. Second, since they could not farm anymore, all those people went into the city and started doing trading business. In the past, merchants were only a minority class, but from then on, many people participated and business became common. Then as the trade business became more and more common, everyone who had lived together and lived a group-oriented life in the past, from then on, began to live an individual-oriented life. The next big issue was the clergy who lived in monasteries, which had the most death at that time, and they failed to keep the social distance that had practiced in pandemic period, because they did not know the cause of the epidemic and its nature. If they had known the nature of the virus, like the pandemic COVID-19 that we are experiencing these days, they would have practiced the social distance.
However, they did not know the nature of the virus, so many people became infected with the virus and eventually became herd immunity and overcame the Black Death. They never knew how the epidemic was spreading, so they thought that all they had to do was pray together with all their hearts. So many priests gathered in one place in the monastery, and all died.
So many priests disappeared, so anyone who lacked qualifications became a priest. Even these illiterate or uneducated people became priests. Therefore, generally, the quality of Catholicism deteriorated a lot, and this vicious cycle occurred where it should be religiously holy, but immoral behavior appeared. After that, many people died from infectious diseases, so too many people did not know whether they would die today or tomorrow, and because there was no guarantee of life or death, those who believed were more likely to believe, but most people tended to let it happen.
The Church in the Middle Ages was very powerful and influential. It controlled many aspects of people's lives, including their education, their social status, and their religious beliefs. However, there were many people who felt that the Church was too powerful and that it was restricting their freedom. These people began to question the authority of the Church and to challenge its teachings.
One of the main reasons for this was the corruption within the Church. Many priests and bishops were more interested in power and wealth than they were in spreading the word of God. They often abused their positions and exploited the people they were supposed to be serving. During the Middle Ages, numerous individuals who were traditionally held in high esteem for their sanctity and reverence found themselves liberated from religious constraints and moral limitations. This liberation played a pivotal role in laying the groundwork for the emergence and flourishing of the Renaissance and the Reformation. Thank you for watching the video, Medieval Europe, provided by History and Current Events. Gina, Bella, Cindy, Helena, and Tony have contributed so far as narrators. Thank you.